Hey everyone, how's it going? I hope you're all doing well as usual. So I'm back today with a collection update. These are some CDs which I recently purchased through Hell's Headbangers. So everyone's probably familiar with that label, distribution, specializing in a lot of really cool underground black metal and death metal and re-releasing a lot of classic albums. So these are just some that I had my eye on and thought, it's been a while since I've got some new music, so I just go ahead and buy those. So yeah, 5 CDs to talk about today, and they are all extreme metal. So either black metal, death metal, or black death metal. So you'll immediately know if this video is for you or not. Although in my experience, it seems like these are the most popular videos. This is what people want to see, extreme metal. So hopefully that's the case. So yeah, 5 albums to talk about, and without further ado, we will get into it. So first of all, I picked up ABOMINATOR with the Fire Brethren. So, ABOMINATOR, this is a band that I've never shown on my channel, but I have actually owned albums of theirs before. So they are a pummeling, relentless black death metal band with snarled vocals from Australia, like from Melbourne. And many, many years ago, I owned their first 2 albums, which were entitled Damnation's Prophecy and Subversives for Lucifer. But if you haven't heard the story, this was over 20 years ago now. My car got broken into and stolen, and in the glove box were those 2 albums plus Cannibal Corpse's Tomb of the Mutilated. I never replaced them, but yeah, I've always really liked this band. So yeah, like I said, it's black death metal, like that kind of crossover style, and they're often regarded as war metal, especially since their demo was called Barbarian War Worship. In my opinion, and I mean this in a good way, I think ABOMINATOR is more tuneful and memorable than a lot of pure war metal. Because pure war metal is usually very abrasive with little melody. Like, don't get me wrong, some war metal is okay, but I'm not a huge fan, generally speaking, of the pure stuff, apart from Bestial Warlust, because they were sort of the originators and in a league of their own, so extreme. But yeah, I would consider this to be more Black Death than war metal. But anyway, if you are familiar with and like the signature ABOMINATOR sound, then you will feel right at home with this release, which is their 6th album. So I have heard the 3rd and 4th albums too, but just never managed to get hold of them. But yeah, this is very, in my opinion, this album here, The Fire Brethren, is very reminiscent of and consistent with the band's earlier albums. Most songs, as always, have the same level of intensity with constant blast beats, but you can still hear the riffs behind them clearly, so the production is good enough to hear those, and the riffs are memorable despite being tuned down very low. They also, on this album, they also shoehorn in the classic ABOMINATOR guitar solos, which always sound very chaotic, like a freight train almost going off the tracks, yet still injecting the songs with some melody. So don't get me wrong, when I say that the guitar solos sound like a freight train going off the tracks, they're not just noise, it's just like, they're just so intense and out of control. And so some of the solos on this album are really good. For example, on the title track, excellent solos. So there are, harmonies and there's melody involved. It's not like some war metal where the guitar solos are just screeching and feedback. No, there's a lot more musical talent on this album. And it's good to know on this album there are also varieties in tempo, with a few mid-pace sections and heavy breakdowns in some songs, so it is kept interesting. It's not just constant blasting, and quite a few songs have tap-along groovy sections. And most significantly, compared to older albums, where I would say this album differs, is that this album features a lot of slower, doom-laden and crawl sections, which the early albums did not. They were basically all focusing on speed, even though the majority of the time it is speed, but they just have these slower, crunchier sections to change it up a bit. So yeah, overall I think it's a really good album. Just if I was to offer any, constructive criticism, I would say because most of the songs have the same level of intensity, there aren't a lot of standout tracks as a whole, but hey, that's never been ABOMINATOR's raison d'etre. They've just been this, assault squad sonically, so, you're not expecting subtlety within an ABOMINATOR album. And I do think that the earlier albums had more varied and standout tracks, but don't get me wrong, this is still really good. Basically, it's ABOMINATOR doing ABOMINATOR with some new, interesting developments, which is cool. So I really like the album as a whole. There are no bad tracks. Like I said, just not a lot of standout tracks, but probably my favorites are track 4, which is entitled Progenitors of the Insurrection of Satan. This kicks off with a really catchy, memorable riff, and the midsection features an epic melodic guitar solo to the backdrop of a doom-laden breakdown. So fantastic stuff. I also really like track 5, entitled Author of All Calamity. This features an unusually groovy, doom-laden section in the middle of the song, and you hear the Abominator machine slowing down to catchy effect. And they also do that doom crawl thing on another track, track 6, called Desolation Earth. And for me, undoubtedly the best track on the album is the last one, entitled Sulphur from the Heavens. The main riff is mid-pace, groovy and chugging, and therefore extremely memorable. So it's not like a typical Abominator riff, but yeah, great stuff. So like I said, it's sort of consistent with the older albums, so if you like those, you'll still enjoy this, but there are some new interesting developments, so they're not just treading water or remaining stagnant. So great stuff. Their 6th album, The Fire Brethren. Okay, just show you the booklet. By the way, this artwork is really cool. I love this kind of stuff. Anything involving, you know, cloaks and hoods and fires, that's always cool. And yep, you just have all of the lyrics here, which I need to spend more time with. Yep, and there you have the lineup of the band. So it is still the same core members here. So Chris Volcano on drums and vocals, and Andrew Gillen, otherwise known as Undertaker, on guitars. So these guys have always been the core members of the band. On the first couple of albums, they had a third member, Damon Bloodstorm, formerly of Bestial Warlust, who did the really sort of low-pitched guttural growls. He's not focused on here, so it's just Volcano's snarled vocals, which are still really good. There's just less variety, but yeah. Yep, so there you have the booklet and the artwork. So really nice layout, and I think all of these albums I'm showing today were actually released by Hell's Headbangers or reissued anyway, so typical that this is the wrong way up, but yeah. Cool logo by the band, of course. Yeah, so really good stuff. Abominator, The Fire Brethren. So if you're not familiar with Abominator or this album in general, I would recommend this for fans of Archgoat, Beherit, Bestial Warlust, Angel Corpse, and Cemetery Urn. So, of course, Cemetery Urn is an offshoot band of Abominator, but maybe some people have only heard Cemetery Urn and not this band. So, yeah, I think out of all the bands I just mentioned, the band that Abominators sound like the most are Angel Corpse. So Angel Corpse, the satanic death metal band from the US. This is very much like Angel Corpse, except maybe a bit more chaotic. Like Angel Corpse is a bit more sort of militant and streamlined. But yeah, like it's got a kind of Archgoat vibe as well, and like it's not sounding exactly like Beherit and Bestial Warlust, but you know, it's that really sort of extreme, chaotic Black Death. So I think it will appeal to fans of those bands. So Abominator with The Fire Brethren. Okay, coming up next. This is an album that I've been hoping to get for a long time. We have Medieval Demon with All Powers of Darkness. God, can you believe it? I was so hyped up about this album, I forgot the actual name, but this is the new one. Yep, so as most people will know, I've been raving on about this band for the last few years, ever since I discovered them in 2020 when I bought the Medieval Necromancy album from Hell's Headbangers. So, if you're not familiar, Medieval Demon are a Greek black metal band, but they don't sound like your typical Hellenic black metal band. How I would describe Medieval Demon, if you don't know them, it's like a cross between Greek black metal, you know, that kind of melodic style, but it's crossed over with Northern symphonic black metal, but with its own unique twist. So, you know, taking influence from those sort of symphonic keyboard-oriented bands of the Scandinavian countries as well. So, this, in a nutshell, is another masterpiece of melodic, atmospheric, ritualistic, hammer horror-themed Hellenic black metal, and that basically applies from the word go on this album. So as soon as the album starts, it's immediately captivating. You're just drawn into this like dark, ritualistic fantasy world loaded with atmosphere. It's absolutely brilliant. The songs possess the trademark Medieval Demon sound. So what that is with the synths and the melodies being used to create a creepy, spooky, and haunting atmosphere. And the trademark pipe organs are still prominent in the songs. And a lot of the keyboards imitate choral vocals to add to that epic vibe, you know, much like the keyboards in Emperor did. And the keyboard lines are really memorable and appealing, so they're kind of ones you hum or sing along to, and the guitar melodies and solos are brilliant, so they're not just relying purely on synths. And something else to say, there's a lot of tempo variety. The drumming and percussion are fantastic, and even include some timpani and kettle drums to add to that kind of orchestral vibe, which other bands did, like Castrum before. And yeah, as is the case with a lot of Greek black metal, this album also features some epic spoken word sections, adding to the mystical, ritualistic atmosphere, which you often hear on Hellenic black metal albums. And yeah, like Rotting Christ do this too, but I would say often this album really just sounds like an epic soundtrack to a fantasy-based dark Greek myth or odyssey, and that's what I love about Greek black metal in general. So the whole album, as I said, is brilliant from beginning to end. There are just like so many interesting and captivating moments. You're constantly transfixed or enchanted. I don't think it's an understatement to say that. At least I was anyway. But just talking about some standout moments, like on track 4, which I can't actually read right now. Let's see. Okay, that's a kind of Greek name. But anyway, on track 4, this has a very sort of striking folky melody at the end, which reminds me of the Finnish band Druiden Forest. So yes, it's that kind of like spellbinding, enchanting black metal, which you hear with that folky elements on that song. Now track 5, which is probably my favorite song on the album, to be honest. Yeah, Raging Lord of the Deep, I think that is. Yeah, that is undoubtedly my favorite track on the album. That has this epic medieval pipe organ intro, and the main riff, honestly, sounds like a tribute to Emperor's Into the Infinity of Thoughts. So, you know, that melody, it's very close to that, but obviously not directly ripping it off, just sort of like a tribute. And this song is so drawn out, but in a good way, with a lot of prolonged, somber, atmospheric sections. And to me, this song, my favorite track on the album, it's like the soundtrack to exploring a dark medieval castle in pitch blackness while you're holding a flickering candle on a tray. It invokes that kind of atmosphere. Now, okay, and track 6, Full Moon over the Temple of Belial. The keyboard riff at the beginning of this song sounds very close to Enslaved's Slaget Iskogen Borten 4. So you know that famous Emperor Enslaved split, the first Enslaved song ever, Slaget Iskogen Borten 4, which is just a majestic atmospheric masterpiece. The keyboard riff sounds like that. So it's interesting, on 2 tracks in a row, they're paying tribute to early Emperor and early Enslaved. So already you'll get an idea if this is for you or not. I think it will appeal to a lot of people. And yeah, so in short, I will just say, this album takes you on a truly mystical, epic, dark, and enchanting journey. And in one word, it is brilliant. Okay, so just showing you the cover art. This is really cool. It's interesting how they went for the contrast of mostly white over black, but it's like a lot of those sort of modern black and death metal artworks, but creepy and cool. And all of the lyrics here, which I need to spend more time with. And pictures of members of the band. Nice glossy booklet. And there is the disc, which is very cool as well. So yeah, something I will mention, like I think this album is a lot better than their previous one, Black Coven. Like I would say all of the Medieval Demons albums are at the very least good, but I found there were just 2 which didn't grab me as much, which were Arcadian Witchcraft and Black Coven. Like, still good, but this is absolutely excellent. This is going close to the top, you know. And yeah, they also continue that theme from Black Coven. They include some saxophone on the last track, which they had done on Black Coven. Yeah, so yeah, Medieval Demon, All Powers of Darkness. Yeah, I would recommend this wholeheartedly for fans of Emperor, Vargrav, Druiden Forest, Necromantia, and Varathron. So you see what I mean? It's like a combination between Northern Scandinavian symphonic black metal and melodic Greek black metal, but absolutely brilliant. Medieval Demon, All Powers of Darkness. Okay. How are we going for time? Not too bad. Okay, up next, I finally picked up Darkest Day of Horror by Mortician, and I was very pleased to do that. This was re-released by Hell's Headbangers, so originally released by Relapse Records, I think. But as you may have heard me say, I'm a massive fan of Mortician, but for some reason, over the years, this album always eluded me. So I was just like intending to pick it up didn't find it, especially where I'm living now. It's hard to find music like this, but yes, this now rounds off my full-length collection of Mortician. I don't own Final Bloodbath because I think live albums are unnecessary, but yeah, so very happy to have this. So if you're not familiar with Mortician, yeah, I'll just say this: there are no surprises on this album. You know exactly what you're going to get. It's that typical Mortician sound. So what is that? It's when the guitars are tuned down as far as they can go, accompanied by distorted, pummeling, crunchy bass, industrial sounding programmed drums, and the moist burble vocals of a barking dog, and a variety of speeds ranging from 240 BPM blast beats to crunchy, heavy, groovy riffs. So in a nutshell, that's what all Mortician albums sound like, but that's why I love them. You know, it's like when bands have this consistent sound, a bit like AC/DC, you know, as the yardstick, you know what you're going to get, but that's exactly what you want. So no surprises here. It's Mortician doing Mortician. I will say this though, like what I really like about this one, it's definitely above other albums. I think this album is way better than, for example, Domain of Death, which I think is my least favorite Mortician album. What I'm pleased to note is that on this album, the drums sound a little bit more organic, especially the snare drum sound. So they sound more like real drums, even though they're programmed. So they're nowhere near as industrial as they were on, say, Hacked Up for Barbecue, which is where they probably sound the most industrial. And so like snare sound is really good. They also incorporate, you know, like I said, they have those crunchy, heavy, groovy riffs, but on this one they also introduce a few more time signatures. They have a few more swing time grooves on this album. For example, the bridge in the track Aurora. But yes, as Relapse described them, they are the heaviest, most brutal band on the planet, and I think that's a fair description, and you certainly get that in spades on this album. As usual, the horror movie samples are pretty terrible, but that's part of the charm of this band. Basically, that's their card of play, that's their signature, that's their trademark. They are inspired by 70s and 80s horror films, often the B-grade ones. So yeah, they sample, you know, moments from these B-grade and badly acted retro horror films. But that's part of the appeal, like I said, so that's their thing, that's Mortician's thing. So yeah, all tracks are good, of course, and you get a variety of tempos. You get the fast blasting ones and then the slower, heavier, crunchy ones. But for me, some of my favorite tracks are Voodoo Curse. That's got a good memorable main riff which you can hum along to, as well as some groovy chugging riffage, as always with Mortician. I really like Massacred as well. That has a memorable riff and a good groove. Probably the best song on the album for me is the title track, Darkest Day of Horror. That's just got a catchy, fat, heavy riff, and it's a little bit like a reprise of Zombie Apocalypse, which is a fantastic song by Mortician as well. I also really like Ghost House because that has a really sort of like sludgy, doom-laden crawl and a catchy, plodding riff and groove. And Taste for Blood also has a good, groovy, memorable riff, and the closing track, The Final Sacrifice, is also fantastic. So Mortician usually close the album with a very strong track, and no exception here. But yeah, like I said, they were just some of the standouts for me, but the whole album is a good listen from beginning to end. So yep, zombie themed once again. And here is the booklet with all of the lyrics. And once again, I'm not sure, and there's the members of the band, so Will Rama and Roger Beaujard. As I've said before, like Mortician has this sound which is just so appealing to me. Like even though it's so barbaric and primitive and simplistic, there's something really appealing about their sound. And I also love the lyrics actually because they're very sort of economical. They're not like elaborate or flowery or poetic. It's just like straight to the point, brutal. So you know, it's a lot of like bones cracked, brains splattered, blood gushing, like that, those kinds of lyrics. But it's just that like sort of primal blow to the face, which is really, really cool. So yeah, heaviest, most brutal band on the planet. And I'm glad to finally round off the collection with this album, Darkest Day of Horror. It's a good one, so check it out if you haven't. All right, 2 more albums to go, guys, so thanks for bearing with me. Okay, up next, I finally picked up the new Satanic WARMASTER. So this is Exaltation of Cruelty, which came out just recently. Once again, because of where I live, it's just hard to pick up new albums by bands, so I know most people have had this for a long time. But Satanic WARMASTER need no introduction. As you may have heard me say, they're one of my favorite black metal bands of all time. Well, it's really he, like Werewolf is the main and the soul and main member of the band. Like sometimes he uses session musicians live. But what you have with this one-man Finnish black metal project, it's essentially paying tribute to the 90s Scandinavian black metal sound. So all of those great Norwegian, Swedish and Finnish bands. And I would say especially influenced by old Darkthrone, old Burzum and Judas Iscariot, the one-man American black metal band. So yeah, that's just to give you an idea of the sound, like a lot of those like tremolo, bleak sounding riffs, and there's a lot of primal energy and emotion. So it's just really good stuff. And as I've said many times, I think Werewolf is the riff master for just writing these bleak, atmospheric, melancholic riffs, which I really like. This album is just absolutely fantastic. Like it's not groundbreaking in the sense like it's not really doing anything new with the Satanic Warmaster sound, but again, that's not necessary because this is what Satanic Warmaster is about. Now, I will say this, 1, 2, 3, yeah, 8 tracks on this, and they're all really good. The first time I listened to this, I was like, oh yeah, this is pretty good, it's solid. Then the second time I even enjoyed it more, and then the third time I was completely immersed in it. So it may take some time to grow on you, but trust me, it's really good. Actually, the first track, entitled A Black Circle of Death, that reminds me very much of Judas Iscariot's An Eternal Kingdom of Fire from their Heaven in Flames album. You know, just that riff. And it's interesting, even the song A Black Circle of Death, again, like the Judas Iscariot song Before a Circle of Darkness, maybe I'm reading into it too much, but very Judas Iscariot vibes on the first track. And track 2, entitled Hearken the Bells of Damnation, that also has Judas Iscariot vibes. Like the main riff in that reminds me of the Judas Iscariot song, The Black Clouds Roll Under the Parapet of the Sky, which was from Judas Iscariot's Distant in Solitary Night album. So very Judas Iscariot-esque, but then again, Judas Iscariot was also inspired by early Darkthrone and Burzum. So yeah, really good stuff. And I have to say, the 2 tracks, which like the whole album is just brilliant. You know, that kind of like blizzard metal, a whirlwind blizzard of melancholic, bleak tremolo sounding riffs, and that kind of snowstorm ambience. My favorite tracks on here are 6 and 7. They've just really stood out to me in terms of the melodies, which are Exhale the Vapor of Scarlet Tombs and Behold the Infernal Kingdom of Hell. I think they are the best tracks on the album. And that's something else to mention. This band does feature synths sometimes more than others, but on this album they are there, but they're just kept in the background. So yeah, another thing to mention, which is really interesting, this album was released on 2 discs. So there's the original format, which has the modern production. So it's kind of a cleaner production. There's punch and you can hear everything clearly. So the production on the original recording of this, it sounds a bit like the production on Fimbulwinter. Now I know a lot of people had a cry about that because they said, oh, it's too clean for Satanic Warmaster. But for me, I don't mind if I can hear it clearly, even though some people have absolutely shot me down in flames for daring to say that I like good production. Fucking hell. Okay, so yes, anyway, so they have that original recording, but then they also include a bonus disc with the raw recordings as well. So maybe that was pre-production or something. And I'm not trying to be some cult elitist, but I actually think I prefer the raw recordings of this album better because there's just more emotion captured in it, and especially with the synth sound, it just blends well. But both are really good. Like with the original, you have that sharp, clear drum sound and production, but with the rawer version, it's just a bit more emotive to me. Yeah, so anyway, there's the cover. So a picture of Werewolf sitting in the living room. So as some people have said, this has got a kind of mutilation vibe, like a bit like Vampires. What's that album called? Vampires of Black Imperial Blood, and also the mutilation cover where the guy is sitting in a wheelchair, sort of like a combination of those. But yes, Satanic Warmaster has also mentioned that he's influenced by La Légion Noire, you know, the French black metal movement, so that's no surprise. And yep, always cool layout with Satanic Warmaster. You know, you have all of the lyrics here, which I need to spend more time with. So picture a werewolf there, and also there. And he did everything on this album. Like it says, Werewolf von Armageddon, music, lyrics, and instruments. So absolutely incredible that all this sound came from one man, but he is super talented, as I've mentioned. Yeah, so I thought this just came on 1 disc, but yesterday I was pleasantly surprised to see. So this is the original recording, and then, wouldn't you know it? Interesting, the color of these discs, but this one says raw version. So yeah, I would recommend the raw version, but basically if you buy this, you get both. I'm not sure. This is the one I got from Hell's Headbangers anyway. So yes, it's not reinventing the wheel for Satanic WARMASTER sound, but if you like that kind of sound, you will definitely not be disappointed. And I will say, I think with this one, even though I've only listened to it a few times, I think it's shaping up to grow on me. I think I like it more than Armengarde, the previous one, and I like it more than Fimbulwinter, just to give you an idea, but that's just me. But great stuff, Satanic WARMASTER with Exaltation of Cruelty. Okay, and one more album to talk about today, guys. So glad to have finally picked this up, because I want to pick up the entire discography by this band. I picked up His Majesty the Swamp by VARATHRON. His Majesty at the Swamp, I should say. So yes, if you haven't heard me raving on about this band, VARATHRON is a well-established Greek Hellenic black metal band which formed in the early 90s, and I've only really been getting into them heavily in the last few years, but I absolutely love this band. This band is sort of the epitome of Hellenic black metal. You know, people always talk about the holy trinity of Greek black metal, which was Rotting Christ, VARATHRON, and Necromantia. Of those three bands, this is undoubtedly my favorite. It used to be Rotting Christ, but this band has eclipsed them. I think this band is just a bit more interesting to me. But I like all three of those bands. But yes, this is one of the band's earlier albums, and what I like about it is just the minimalistic simplicity. So Greek black metal is renowned for a lot of melody and those kind of hypnotic sounds, and those melodies which really stick in your head. They are in abundance on this album, and what I like about it is it's not really an aggressive or evil sounding album, and a lot of Greek black metal bands don't try to sound evil. Like I've said, it's more of like a mystical ancient world atmosphere, and you really get that on this album. The riffs kind of sound sleepy and slow, and what was the other word I was looking for? Sort of sleepy and slow, lethargic almost, but there is so much melody and atmosphere behind them that when they're played at this speed, that's what really captures the atmosphere, and especially with the dim synths in the background. This album is just teeming, dripping with melody, which makes the songs all the more trance-like and memorable. You're locked in an aural trance when you listen to VARATHRON. It's absolutely brilliant, and I love this album. So very glad to have picked it up, and this is regarded as one of their classics. So if you like Hellenic black metal, definitely pick this up if you haven't. Yeah, and so I'm not going to do a breakdown of all of the songs here, because all of the riffs and all of the songs are really good. I will say this, in addition to the sort of hypnotic, slow, melodic riffs, they also do have some fast sections, but it's not extremely fast. The blasting's more like that's as fast as it gets, but it really captures those mid-paced melodies so well. My favorite tracks from this are track 3, Unholy Funeral, and also tracks 6 and 7, Flowers of My Youth and The River of Souls. Absolutely fantastic. And yeah, some people might say, oh, some of the riffs are a bit repeated or repetitive in these songs, but again, it's contributing to that trance-like atmosphere, completely immersed in melody. So absolutely brilliant. And as I've said many times, I think that's what's unique about Greek black metal bands. They don't sound like anyone else, and it just captures a really distinct vibe. And Necroabisios, the vocalist, his vocal style is like a lot of those Greek black metal bands, where it's raspy, but often it sounds like a death-like growl, but it just really adds to the atmosphere. It's not someone just screaming to be aggressive or evil for the sake of it. It really captures a certain atmosphere. So there's the cover there, which I think is really cool. Pictures of the band on the back. And this comes on this cool fold-out digipack. Yep. So a bit like the Dark Funeral album, Where Shadows Forever Reign, how it folds out. And really nice disc there. Okay. So yeah, and it includes all of the lyrics. Again, I'm one of those people, I don't really pay attention to lyrics these days, and I should. I'm not lazy per se, but it's just the music's more important. But occasionally I'm getting to that habit now where I sit down and listen, properly sit down to listen to something. I'll read along with the lyrics because it adds to the atmosphere, especially with black metal bands. So, yep, one of the earliest albums from VARATHRON, but it's brilliant. So glad to have it. His Majesty at the Swamp. All right, and that's it for today, guys. So 5 albums under half an hour. That's about my standard time hope you don't mind. But at this stage, I don't think popularity is really an issue, because my videos lately seem to have been getting less and less likes and less views. Few people comment anymore, and I was starting to think, why am I even doing this anymore? But the answer is, it's not for not to be Mr. Popular. It's not for numbers. It's not for popularity. It's because I enjoy talking about music, and if other people like it, that's a bonus too. But I've just been a bit disheartened with the success of the channel lately. But all you can do is plow through and move on. Like I will keep making these videos until I stop enjoying talking about the music. So that seems like a long way off for those who care. But yeah, if you've got this far and you still watch the channel, I really appreciate it, and look forward to seeing you in the next one. Cheers, bye.